Hey everybody, today I'm talking to you about my nonfiction reads and what it taught me this year. I had a great reading year and I don't really mind DNFing things that I'm not loving. So it was really phenomenal as far as the books that I've read. I'm at right now 129 books total that I've read. And that doesn't really include the ones that I think I'll finish up in the next week or so. But 58 of those, were nonfiction. And it was way too hard to try and narrow down my list of the best nonfiction of the year. I can tell you that I'm pretty sure my favorite two memoirs were Born a Crime by Trevor Noah and Love Warrior by Glennon, Doyle, Melton. I've mentioned those several times before. So that's going to be on my list for the top books, I think. But it was really hard to narrow down. So instead of narrowing down, I thought I would just do a kind of discussion video on the things that I really took away from all of the combined conglomeration of knowledge from the books that I read this year that were nonfiction. I read a lot of memoirs. I read some history kind of books. I definitely read some books that are more on like the political climate and as well as the actual climate. My biggest goal for the year was to read more on race and what that means for me as a white person, what that means for other people coming from their own experiences and backgrounds, and how we relate to each other because of it. And so I was really blown away by the reads that I got to examine from that. There were some definitely really hard things to read from those things, whether it was from the nonfiction or the fiction that I read on race. I took away from that while I was aware of my privilege, I don't think anybody can ever be completely aware of what it would be like to not have that privilege associated with them if they don't have it to begin with. It was hard to read about parents who felt they had to talk to their sons about not appearing to be too dangerous, or encouraging their children to choose a safer route instead of sticking up for themselves sometimes. Those things were very difficult to read, especially as a parent. It made me evaluate how I talk to my own children about those items. And those were the big sucker punch things on race, was just remembering that safety is a concern for a lot of people. Obviously with the shootings that we had this year and some of the other racial slurs, violence acts this year, was really hard to see some people say that Black lives don't matter or that all lives matter and any of that stuff. And because for me, for me, the reason we have to say Black lives matter is because they haven't been mattering enough to enough people, and that's sick. That's really sick to me. So I really took away just kind of a stance of trying to stick up for those people so they don't have to all the time. I think it's been really frustrating on social media to see some of my Black friends have to feel like they have to explain these things over and over and over again. And it's kind of them to continue to do that. But at some point, I as a white person need to stand up and say, this is the deal. We can't go on like this. There are generations of things. Just Mercy was really eye-opening for me, as well as the new Jim Crow, just talking about how the prison system was designed to continue racial dividing, and that's just not right. It needs to be reevaluated. So those are the big things I took about on race. The things that I took away, I really enjoyed Come As You Are, which is about women's sexuality. I read several other ones on feminism. I normally throw in a lot of those, but this one in particular made me feel empowered as a woman to love my body just as it is, and to be able to communicate with other people what I like and why I like it, and not having to explain myself to be different. It made me feel good as a parent of children to say to my boys that they need to understand these things about women, but also to my daughter to be able to say when she gets older, this is how it is, and I want you to enjoy yourself and respect yourself enough to be able to know what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. I think Girls and Sex was another one where she talks about how we haven't taught our females to know what their own boundaries are. We've just asked them to ask what everyone else wants, and that's not okay. I know that was my perception for a long time, too long, where I felt like I had my worth in the pleasure or the things I did for other people, and it had nothing to do with myself. So that was there were some really great reads on accepting myself and knowing that I'm enough as I am, and I don't have to be a certain way for anybody else. And that if somebody doesn't understand that you're enough like that, then they don't deserve you. So that was kind of another really cool thing. I read a lot about climate change, which was hard with the election results to be able to kind of take that in. I think it's been nice because my husband, for the one time in his life, is more optimistic than I am, which is nice, actually. But Climate Change by Philip Scorzoni was Philip Scorzoni was really a cool graphic memoir narrative science book on the reasons that we're having problems and also what we need to do to fix them. The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert talked a lot about that as well. And it made me kind of want to look at my own personal choices for our family and how I can cut back on some of the excess so I can help out a little bit. So hopefully next year I'll be able to kind of voice more of what that means after I've kind of processed that. As far as cooking goes, I read some great cookbooks this year. I read some fun food memoirs, but the things that I took away about cooking and food is to not use food as a drug, number one. Number two, to try and eat more seasonally, to try and figure out how to take one ingredient and make it 2 or 3 different things, to make my life easier by planning ahead, so I can not have to stress out about what we're going to eat or what we're going to have leftovers. One of our big nuances that we developed last year is having like a meal already made on Sundays. So after we get home from church, we can just have that and have game day. And I've really enjoyed doing that this year. And some cookbooks that I've gotten have helped to kind of figure that out so I can facilitate that process. Some other things that I took away: focus. I have a really hard time because I get distracted easily, but remembering to focus on the few things that are important, do those things first, try and communicate those main values with my family, with my husband, with my kids, and with myself, so I don't just get distracted like a squirrel and go on to the next thing. Parenting, some great nuggets that I took away from that is to love the kid that you have. Don't feel like you are creating this recipe of, if I insert music lessons and reading and this amount of quality time with chores, my kid will turn out perfect. They're not going to turn out perfect. No one is. However, if you can look at your child and figure out where their strengths are, where they might need help with some of their weaknesses, but really encouraging their strengths, and loving that kid for who they are, you're going to have so much better of a time, and they're going to have so much better of a time. So that was kind of a cool parenting nugget that I was able to take away, not just for parenting, but also for my homeschooling work. The other thing, another thing that I really kind of got stabbed with was education as being so important. In Chris Hadfield's book about the Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth, he talks about learning as much as you can because you don't know when you'll need it. So it really encouraged me to step up my game as far as personal development goes and learning more, because I don't honestly know when I'm going to need it. And if I have the discipline to keep going with it, whenever I will need it, it will be there for me. But on the flip side, the book that I read about Mighty Be Our Powers, where she's talking about the Liberian Civil War, and just all of the chaos that ensued from that, she talks about what's the point of education when it can be taken away with a single bullet. And that really, really stuck in my head as far as A lot of people can have a lot of things, but if we're not working for justice and we're not working for safety for everyone and security for people, the education isn't going to mean much. And so we need to fight not only for education, and that's part of getting to the peace. Education is a huge part of that process. But if we don't have security and safety, education can be worthless, which I've never ever considered thinking about. Other things that really blew my mind this year was the idea of making life more fun, which sounds like kind of a duh thing, but the book Super Better talks about being able to take challenges and mundane things and making them into a game. The Secrets of Happy Families also mentioned that, and the more I've been trying to make life more fun that way, whether it's just giving myself a reward after I finish this or seeing how fast I can do something, it's just been a lot more enjoyable. And I think those are some really great things that I think will continue to make my life rich. I really, really enjoyed all the books that I read this year for the most part. And I want to encourage you, again, nonfiction does not need to be overwhelming. It can be self-help. It can be a hero biography or a memoir of somebody that you really admire. But I've been amazed by how much I've been able to learn from other people's experiences, thoughts, histories, research. I really want to encourage you in 2017 to pick up a little bit more nonfiction than you would otherwise. Right now, I read about half, and I'm pretty happy with that. But you're really missing out if you're not picking up nonfiction, guys, because it's been changing my world. I'll talk to you later. Have a great time. Bye.